Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, to please submit them using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Here's your host, Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm honored to be here with two impressive female founders, Jaqui Lividini and Kerry O'Brien. Retailers have quickly learned that agility and the ability to pivot rapidly are essential, even more so this year. Both of these amazing founders have extensive backgrounds in leading brands through crises, with Kerry's company even being founded due to a crisis. So a little bit of background on Kerry. Kerry O'Brien is the founder, designer, and CEO at Commando, the bodywear brand renowned for its luxury technical fabrications and innovative constructions. I'm sure many of you on this call are very familiar with the product. With a focus on basics, Commando creates contemporary foundational styles that serve as a canvas for ready-to-wear looks. After working in PR in Manhattan and quitting her job post 9/11, Kerry realized the potential and need for comfortable and luxurious technical bodywear made in the US. Having no formal design background, she had a very unique approach to the fashion industry, as do many who create amazing brands like Commando. Kerry's achievements have led her to pioneer a woman-focused, woman-founded, and woman-supported business. And who better for her to partner with than Jaqui Lividini? Jaqui is the founder and CEO of Lividini & Co. and is a force in the retail industry. She has spent the bulk of her career in the fashion industry using her namesake brand strategy company to drive established and emerging brands to greatness. I first had the opportunity to meet Jaqui during my days as a Wall Street analyst as she was rising through the executive ranks at Saks Fifth Avenue, culminating in the position of SVP of Fashion, Merchandising, and Communications, where she really played a critical role in evolving the luxury retailer's fashion and brand image. And I have to say, as an analyst, she could always explain, right, kind of the mysteries of the fashion industry. I would say simple language that we could easily digest. In addition to her reputation for driving revered brands to success, Jaqui also has a legacy of philanthropy, including the creation of the Key to the Cure charity benefiting women's cancer research. I'd like to welcome Kerry and Jaqui today.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for having us, Deborah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
This is great. So Jaqui, you have a wide range of very impressive clients. What are you hearing in terms of their outlook for this holiday? And, you know, it's definitely unlike any that they've seen. When did they start preparing?
Well, I think they started preparing in March for everything, right? Not knowing what was going to happen. But the outlook really depends on the category, whether it's a brand or a retailer. So it's not a blanket answer for that. I will say everyone is cautious about what's happening. Obviously, the apparel sector is the sector that's most challenged right now. Jewelry seems to be a sector that's benefiting from no travel and no celebrations, so people are investing in jewelry. So it really depends on the category, but it is people really would like to see some normalcy this Christmas, but who knows? We don't know. Although good news this morning about the vaccine. So hopefully that will help Christmas be successful this year.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, with less people traveling, eating out, and, you know, paying for entertainment, there, many people certainly have more in their wallets. I mean, Kerry, what are you doing to prepare for holiday? How's it different than last year and other holidays? We've heard, as Jaqui mentioned, because so many retailers and brands did kind of prepare in March and canceled orders, we are seeing a very unusual lack of inventory in some sectors and categories. Can you talk about your experience this year?
Sure. As Jaqui mentioned, yes, holiday preparation starts actually well before March. And when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of people overcut their assortment, underestimating the consumer. For us, it has been, we really, it's all about the chase for merchandise. And so all of our customers are just front loading their inventory. Like the amount of replenishment and orders that we have received unplanned for, because they originally planned for them, then they cut them, and then they wanted them back. The front loading of the inventory for the holiday season is remarkable. I think it's a merchandise grab. I think that the consumer had never faced scarcity before, and same with our wholesale customers. So she wants to make, you can't sell something that you don't have. So for that has been the most remarkable for us. Of course, there's other things that we're doing. Obviously, we're doing early messaging around the holiday season. Black Friday is probably already started for most retailers. For us, it's starting today.
And how do you, it's interesting, right? For years, I won't say how many, right? I've been in the stores on Black Friday, and then it started, right, Thanksgiving, and then it was kind of the whole week. And then, I was like 7 days, right, between the month. What are you seeing in terms of, I've been in a lot of, kind of outlets and, kind of, let's call it strip malls and, kind of outdoor open air centers. And, we've seen a lot of signage, right, around Black Friday, starting kind of November 1. How do you think it plays out this year? And then one other question along those lines, we've also heard this idea of, right, an extended holiday season, right, into maybe mid-January. Things we've never heard before. How do you, as a brand, a retailer, a designer, how do you kind of digest all of that?
Well, we're in a fortunate position because the majority of what Commando makes is things that a woman loves to wear every day. And they're what we call evergreen products. So they're not really seasonal or fashion. So we can take large inventory positions and hold them for a very long time. So she comes back for us for staples. Yes, she'll use us for holiday dressing, but she uses us to build her entire wardrobe because she loves opening up her closet and having things that she loves to wear that are comfortable. So that's important as well.
And Jackie, right, one of the biggest questions has been around supply chain this holiday season, having product, available for the customer, having it in a easy kind of buy online, pick up in store experience, and also just making sure it can kind of arrive on time. What kind of questions are your customers coming to you as it relates to, the supply chain, and what have been some of your answers?
Well, the supply chain is not my area of expertise. So I think Kerry's actually better suited to answer that question. I will say that to Kerry's point before and to your point, the questions that are coming up this year are different than they've ever been before. That people are solving for challenges that they just have never prepared for. And the good news in all that is that it's propelled their business forward in a lot of ways and has accelerated whatever changes they were involved with to begin with. But anyway, I'm going to let Kerry talk about.
Well, it's funny, Jackie, whether you think you're an expert or not, I've had 2 of your clients who said you gave them phenomenal advice on supply chain. So you now have, right, this reputation in the retail industry. So you may not be realizing it, but you've given some great advice to people. I think they followed it and they're having a much better season as a result. So Kerry, share with us some of those pearls of wisdom from Jackie.
Well, for us, it was all about being on the offensive. Okay. So instead of retreating in March, we bought a year's worth of key fabrications that we knew we would have to allocate as we wanted to. That was important to us, to really be in control of our supply chain, because we cut and sew here in the United States.
Yeah, I think, Jackie, you were, if I go back, we had done, right, a webinar. I think you were like the second one we'd done in 2020. You had mentioned specifically that you were telling people to continue to, be positive, make sure that they were in stock. And I do think that, because we've seen such categories that we might not have expected with strength, I think you really did have an impact on, your clients' top and bottom lines. What are you seeing in terms of just innovation, as you're talking to your clients, Jackie, and how are they still connecting with their consumer? How are they doing that differently?
Well, they're all of a sudden, March 14th rolled around and, the world shut down, or at least the United States shut down. And it was very hard not to go into panic mode, right? Because everything that we had planned for, everything we knew was just different overnight. And many clients were able to accelerate. And I think the agreed upon rate of acceleration that I've heard and read is 5 years. So everything in digital has accelerated 5 years ahead. And that really, I think, is the silver lining in all this. The clients that were just getting into direct to consumer, that were not maybe spending as much time talking to their consumer online, all of a sudden had to get great at it. They had to be experts at it. And it's, in the small companies who are very nimble and you expect them to move quickly, did. But the big surprise was big companies were able to move quickly as well, and on a very reduced staff, because they were, furloughing people and trying to preserve cash and get their bottom line in line. And I think for those who have survived this and those who have thrived through it, I think it was an incredible learning experience and has actually put them in better shape today than they were, in March. And I think Kerry can speak to that, because I feel like she had that experience.
Yeah, I think that for us, direct to consumer was a very important channel for many years. Commando is almost 15 years old. And so wholesale is very important. Direct to consumer is definitely a focus of ours for the last 5 years. So we were really ready to shift, and it accelerated very quickly. The consumer was very resilient, and she found us. She finds the products that she trusts.
And Kerry, as you're, kind of thinking about new ways that you've either tried, tested, worked, didn't work during, kind of 2020, what have you found in terms of communications, outreach, engagement with your customer? What's worked? And do you believe that you're finding that your existing customers are doing more with you, or have you found that you've also picked up a lot of new customers, especially with the category that you're in?
I think it's both. I think that you can't all of a sudden build trust during a pandemic. You have to enter it with trust, and our consumer definitely trusts the Commando brand. So she bought more from us, but there was this whole discovery of a new consumer that hears from other people what they love, and that really helped as well.
Just about her changing needs, tastes, interests, desires over the year. How have you seen, kind of her purchasing patterns change? And are you, kind of rethinking, extending your line? What are you doing differently in 21 based on what you learned in 20?
Well, we know comfort is king, and she's going to continue to want comfort, but going forward, she's not going to just want it. She's going to demand it. And that doesn't mean just lounging around the house. When she finally goes out, she's going to want to look great, and she's going to feel great. And she's not going to accept things that don't work with her body. So I think that everyone can learn from that. And that's something we're banking on going forward.
Actually, a great point. Jaqui, what have you seen from your clients on the same question?
Well, the thing that has surprised me, and really, I'm kind of proud of the way that everyone has approached this with innovation in mind, right? So, you would think that being in, survival mode, that you wouldn't innovate. And I feel like the creativity that's come into solving the challenges of the pandemic and the innovation, even the smallest things, our client is Signet, and their business went from 90% in store, people purchase jewelry, they like to feel it, touch it, to 100% online, right, when all their stores were closed. And they were able almost overnight to arm all their store managers with iPads, and were able to interact with their consumer digitally, and keep their business going in a rather robust way over a very difficult time. And I think many clients have shown that kind of innovation. We have a client, Pop Sockets, which is the grip on your phone, and they went into giving mode immediately and came out with two exclusive Pop Socket grips that benefited Doctors with Borders and Feed America. And people bought them immediately because they felt they can do something very quickly to help. And that's the kind of innovation and the creativity that many retailers and brands brought to the pandemic.
Have you found, Jaqui, that there have been greater interest in partnerships, whatever those might look like? And have you also seen any of your clients kind of working together in new ways?
Yeah, I think partnerships have always been an important way to accelerate your brand. But during this time, 1+1 = 3, and if you can partner with another brand to create something that's new and interesting for your consumer, absolutely, 100%. I think people are definitely considering it, and finding partners that make sense for them to partner with.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Kerry, if we think about kind of the road ahead and how you think about distribution, how has that evolved?
We are proud of our wholesale strategy, and we consider them to be important touch points for the consumer and important avenues for our consumer to discover our brand. To us, we are agnostic of whether they buy it at a department store, a boutique, or with us directly. But you cannot deny the power of direct to consumer and that direct relationship we have with our customer that is growing every day. That is certainly the roadmap going forward for Commando and other brands, but that doesn't mean that's the only path forward. We will still invest in our wholesale channel. We consider them great partners. But being direct to consumer kind of sets a brand free. Like, there's no more someone else deciding how they're going to buy your line. You get to decide your own journey. And so I really do believe that the pandemic has unleashed a lot of brands. Just like I think the pandemic has unleashed a lot of brands, just like Commando, where we're already that way. And now it's like, boom, we can do whatever we want to now.
And, it's interesting because we had a lot of great feedback when, our clients heard that we were doing this call today because they've been following Commando, and, they're kind of also like, right brand, right time, right, great founder. I mean, how, are to you? And I mean, it's got to be somewhat overwhelming. How are you managing it?
You broke up a little bit, but for me, it's one thing to have a growing business and you started your stuff, and every year it's growing double digits just about. And then you shift to be a pandemic CEO. You've done this before. We had challenging time, lean in to our relationships with our supply chain and our customers. And we weathered 2008. In fact, it was a fantastic year for us. So you just have to keep on keeping on and moving forward and making the best decisions as you can, keeping all your stakeholders, thinking of them, not just your customer. It's your employees. It's your suppliers. We've been working with the same mills factories were. And it's not just like, oh, it's just for us. We have to survive. We all survive. We have to have a vibrant customer, but we also have, the employees make Commando happen. It's not just the Kerry show. It's the whole team.
How are you looking differently, right, from a Made in USA perspective, how you're approaching that? And are you finding that you're getting any support from state and local governments, right? Just how is the kind of sourcing aspect of, your business changing?
The state and local governments have been very busy this year, and I don't think they're truly focusing on keeping factories in business only to make protective wear. So it has been, I could write a whole article about this, like, made in the United States, you think you're protected. So I bring in all my fabrics for a year's worth, but yet our factories are focused on keeping their employees safe and then turning to make protective wear for the United States. And so talk about a shifting supply chain, right? It's so many different moving pieces, but I'm still proud to have over 90% of our stuff made in the United States. But there's no doubt that the pandemic changed things very significantly for the US manufacturing cut and sew. And I don't know how it's going to go forward, if it's going to ever recover. But we still are a true believer in made in the United States.
And Jaqui, have you found it's interesting? We've started to hear, I think, in an election year and, just reconsidering what sustainability means and, kind of other opportunities on, as it relates to trade. Are you finding that your clients are having conversations either with their boards or with their executive teams on kind of where they're making their goods or where they're assembling them?
The conversation, bigger than sustainability. Just corporate responsibility in general has become a very hot topic for every brand, every retailer, because of the consumer. The consumer cares, and especially the younger consumer, they're making choices based on many of those corporate responsibility questions that are in the boardrooms right now. How do we run a better business? How do we run a more sustainable business, and a business that has empathy? And I think the current events of the day have also added to that. So it's, even though it is maybe you're not seeing it with all of brands and retailers yet, or you're seeing it just a little bit, I feel like that is something that over the past 9 months is accelerating as well. So it's become more of a conversation. People really want to do the right thing more than ever. And you're going to see it more and more.
That's great. I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll go to the audience. But Jaqui, along those lines, right, where I feel like we started off the year talking about sustainability for sustainability's sake, and now it's moved into sustainability for profitability's sake, but certainly very important. And then we have diversity and inclusion, and you've got ESG. I mean, how do you help your clients just kind of, there's a lot of noise. I mean, it's incredibly important, but many of these companies are just trying to kind of make it to the other side of this. How do you help them think about getting there?
Well, it was certainly the for a company navigating first the pandemic and then Black Lives Matter. I mean, it was a lot this summer to deal with. But again, we talk about that acceleration. It made everyone think about it and have to deal with it. And I feel like the first thing a company has to think about is it authentic to them? You can't just come out with a statement or a cause-related opportunity that's not authentic and in your voice. And if it doesn't make sense for your company, then you shouldn't do it. So companies really have to dig deep and find out what it is that they're doing that they could do better, that what it is that they're presenting to their consumer that they could do better, and then do it. But if it's not in their authentic voice, if the consumer doesn't feel like it is, it's something that is part of your DNA, they're not going to accept it. They're not going to believe it. We have a very clever consumer now, very different than maybe in years past, and you can't fool them. So you've got to be very careful about what you're putting out there and what you're claiming and what you're saying. Now,
those are very wise words. Kerry, we're going to hop into, we have quite a few questions. We'll get through as many as we can. But okay. Kerry, one question, what has been your biggest challenge during the pandemic?
I would say my biggest challenge is, I would say that making sure that I was concentrating on the right things, right? Because you want to make sure you have the right product mix, the right supply, but you also want to make sure you're definitely taking care of your employees and your supply chain and your family and your parents. And, because you're not just a CEO and you're not just a founder. So really not letting the tide overwhelm me and knowing that I could make it through, just having that, just knowing that, we're all going to make it through this. And so I would say just juggling just the many things. When you think things wouldn't get worse, they would kind of get worse, like stores shutting down, and then there's protests, and then they're getting shut down again, and then tariffs getting lifted and then put back on again. It was just lots of things.
No, and Jaqui, what about for you?
I think that just just surviving, just getting to the other side, and feeling good about what you've come through and what you've accomplished and how you've directed your clients, and seeing, some success at the end of that.
It's a very, kind of wise point. I also like this question, which is a bit, kind of, I think just a bit broader. What's your outlook on, for the holiday season? I'll tell you just, we at Coresight had a 5% estimate, but half of that we cover food and non-food. 220 basis points, or about half of that was in the, kind of food category. And, but non-food still, a good, I would say good. And we're looking at holiday this year, just October 1 to kind of December 31, because, right, it really did start a bit earlier. Thank goodness. How, Jackie, from a kind of 10,000 foot view, how do you think, you don't have to throw a number out there if you don't want, but how do you think of it just year over year, up, down, sideways?
Holiday? Oh God, again, category specific. I think some categories like jewelry will do very well. I think some categories, are going to be more challenged. Overall, I hope that we can be, we can bring out a holiday that's a little up, I mean, when you look at numbers like Target's putting out there, you're very optimistic, right? It feels so great. They've been so incredibly successful. So it's a crapshoot, but we're all hoping that it's a successful Christmas.
We've had a lot of retailers report this week, and all, right, for the most part, it's been incredibly positive. And I think to me, right, especially the Walmart numbers, right, almost their entire comp, right, was digital, digital first, let's call it, right. So it kind of began online. And I do think that, right, the customer has shown, right, just how quickly they can also adapt, and the retailers as well. Kerry, how do you think, once again, if we look at it, kind of those, 90 or so days, 10/1 to 12/31, just what's your outlook, if you have a broader outlook for your category, or, not sharing anything specific on Commando, but just how are you thinking about, once again, up, down, sideways?
Well, if distribution centers can stay open, this is the biggest thing. If distribution and shipping is working, for us, we are planning to be up for holiday season. So our product is resonating with the consumer. It's not just about, leggings that she's sitting home in. There's like sequin and patent leather leggings that are actually our best sellers during this time. Even this year, patent leather leggings is one of our best sellers. So she's buying, she's out there, but she needs to get her product. So if it's available to her, we're expecting it to be up.
It's really interesting, because we have seen many retailers, both, I don't even like the term essential and non-essential, but let's call it like food and non-food, that have taken out a second location, either in an enclosed mall, so that they can, and even like Kia, retailers I would have never, first of all, I think it's very, kind of, very progressive in terms of how they're thinking about, right, engaging with a customer, right? And so that their stores are full, that there's another, kind of location. We're seeing in the more either outlet, but I would say strip, a lot of retailers are taking, if they can, a second location, right? If there's unfortunately a company or store that's no longer in their center, and they're utilizing that to stage. And so this idea, right, that they can then, right, if people are doing, buy online, pick up in store, curbside, or pick up, or whatever that looks like, they're using that kind of inventory to stage, and then the other store for shopping, because, right, once you get over about 15% of people picking a store, it's not the greatest experience. And I do think that, Kerry, it's an interesting thought. If we do see challenges in distribution, how to kind of, keep the packages rolling, because I think we all really, I have to say, if you want to know what I had thought we would see, is a lot more around just the holiday message, because I think we need it so much. And I've been surprised, because even if it's just this idea of joy or giving, but, I think that we could all, be uplifted a bit right now. So I've been surprised that, we haven't seen maybe a bit more of that. Maybe that's and I know everyone's had so much on their plate, but there may be, right, kind of unique ways that we can get, product into centers. And then what we saw during the last lockdown, and these were fairly good sized retailers, literally the store managers who they didn't furlough were driving product around, right, from store to store. And I was like, you know what? And then they were packing it up and shipping it. And I'm like, this to me is just, right, like, we've got a problem, let's figure out how to solve it, and then, like, let's just get it done. And I remember talking to the C-suite, and they're like, we didn't even know, right? Like all this was going on, and these store managers just really worked together to make it happen. And so I do think, Kerry, there has to be a way, because, right, once again, we all want, kind of the holiday to happen. And I think everyone's willing to kind of, I mean, hey, if I've got to go get in my car and go to a DC and truck, Commando product to a store. I mean, I think that everyone wants, especially I think there's a big focus on SMBs. And, we've even heard some of the landlords, I think Kimco is a great example, where, they're helping, kind of paying for legal fees and other, other real necessities that, some of these companies need. So it's been very, very interesting and uplifting. So I'm going to ask each of you, we need kind of, words of wisdom. That's what we've come to both of you for. So Kerry, I'm going to let you kick us off, and Jaqui, you're going to have the big finish.
I think that you can't underestimate the consumer. And I think that's something that we probably all did when the pandemic hit. She's surprisingly resilient. She knows what she wants. And I think we're underestimating the very important news of the 3 possible vaccinations this week. And so she is thinking, I think she's going to think in those terms right now as she shops for this holiday season and next holiday season. And I really think that, don't forget, every woman, most women want her peacock moment. She will buy her basics, but she'll also buy something that makes her feel extra special and makes her look amazing as well.
I love that. Jaqui?
Well, I think you're right. We have pent up need for joy. I mean, we need joy, and there's nothing more joyful than Christmas. So, and what Kerry said, that people are feeling optimistic with these vaccines, just a moment away, it seems like, and hopefully that will translate into a great Christmas. So we all have to do our part. So
that's right.
Get out there.
Get out and shop. All right, you heard it here from Jaqui and Kerry. Let's kind of be optimistic and get out there and do what we can to support, especially the SMBs. So with that, I'd like to thank Kerry and Jaqui for always a stimulating discussion, and really, Jaqui, like I said, you didn't know that you've turned into the supply chain expert during this time. So, but we, I like I said, I still remember that conversation, and you were very early on telling people to make sure that they had inventory, and you're absolutely right. Yeah. For those of you who enjoyed this discussion, please tune in on December 3rd at 11, as we'll have One Door CEO join me to discuss bridging the retail merchandising execution gap to increase revenues, which is definitely a challenge that we all have. So thank you, Jaqui. Thank you, Kerry, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.